Okay, so last two classes, we finish the text. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvi Navadhitamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. We saw yesterday that this knowledge is growing clarity, and what it involves is any understanding takes place through vritti. And for everything else, the vritti has two characteristics. One is, in order to understand anything, the vritti, the thought, takes the shape of the thing that it has to understand. And secondly, as a result of taking that shape, the ignorance of that particular thing goes away. Now, if one understanding is not just one process, but multiple processes, then it is possible that you understand 3 or 4 steps, but you lose yourself in the other steps. And in Vedanta, what is important to recognize is not just one thing needs to be understood, multiple things need to be understood. And in each of this, you may get lost somewhere in between. And then not only multiple things have to be understood accurately, but they all have to be put together in the right place to create one coherent picture of the reality. Because not only each individually has to be understood, but its relationship with everything else has also to be understood exactly, in its exact place, not approximate place. And that's what actually creates the condition for the last vritti, which is akhandakara vritti. So every other vritti, when you are listening to Shastra, you are creating images. Without creating images, you can't understand anything. So please don't say, when I'm listening to you, I'm creating images. Yes, you can't have akhandakara vritti. You have to create images. But what do you need to make sure? What do you need to make sure? That those images are as accurate as possible. They are not deviating. You are following all the logics and you are going all the way and you are seeing all the connections, not halfway. It's not like things are floating around, ideas are floating around, but you don't quite know how to exactly put them in their right place. And see interconnection of how this idea connects to that idea. That's why, as a teacher, you have to answer any question that anybody asks from anywhere. You can't just say, okay, I'm talking about this and you only ask it. They'll just ask anything. If you have not put all the relationships together, you'll be lost. You don't know how to answer it. Because you yourself have not thought about it. Then everything is jumbled up, muddled up. That means there is still clarity which is lacking. Things are not exactly where they are meant to be. It's not totally clear. So this process, you have to keep refining your thoughts and your vrittis. There is no such thing that akhandakara vritti doesn't come at will. So till then, you have to keep improving your activity. And that is, any vritti other than akhandakara vritti is going to have a form in keeping with what is to be understood. If you have to understand jiva, you need corresponding vritti to to understand what Jiva is. Without having corresponding vritti, you cannot understand what Jiva is. Do you understand? If you have to understand Ishvara accurately, you need to have corresponding vrittis. Your mind has to create an accurate vrittis to understand what Ishvara is. Anything, any prakriya that is used, you need to create accurate vrittis to understand that prakriya and use that prakriya to see what that prakriya is showing. So for everything you need accurate vrittis. And what is that final vritti? What you have to understand is not an object. It can't take a corresponding form. Because what you have to understand is limitless. It's not something, a given thing. But when you have put everything together and you are clearing the picture and you are clearing the picture and you are seeing the connections and the mind is totally abiding in this clarity, and not that when you have to deal with the forms, it goes back to its own patterns. Everything is coherent, everything is in line. There is an alignment, whether it is your daily life or Vedanta class, you see a certain reality and you operate from it. That little individual doesn't come back again to go back to its own patterns. The vision rules the way you live your life. As that happens, what happens is, in Ishvara's vision, you are ready for the knowledge. Because there is overall alignment. There is no discrepancy between what you understand in the class and what is being taught. There is no discrepancy between what you cognitively understand and how you behave. There is overall alignment. The vision is settling, assimilated. Because if that is the truth, you operate from the truth. It's not like I operate from the truth only under certain conditions. Otherwise, I come back to square one. That is not called preparation. So, as you are then ready, this is why Swamiji used to say Vedanta is growing clarity. Growing clarity. Things become more coherent, more assimilated, more aligned, less and less discrepancies in what you understand and what is being taught. Then, the final vritti is Akhandakara. What is Akhandakara vritti? Since Brahman doesn't have any given form, so in order to understand tree, you need to bring tree thought. In order to understand Jiva, you need to understand all the in different steps. What is Jiva? In order to understand what Ishvara is, you need different steps to understand exactly what Ishvara is. But then to understand total Brahman, one undivided whole, there is no second, which doesn't have a form. All this is a build-up, like for that clarity, putting all the pieces together accurately. Then that final thing is formless vritti comes, but it doesn't take any given form. Akhanda akara. Akara is form. Akhanda means not a given form. What does it mean? When I think of a tree, I only think of a tree, and I'm not thinking of what? Billions of other things. That is called, if my vritti is tree vritti, it eliminates everything else. But if your mind takes a vritti called Brahman, which eliminates everything else, Brahman becomes an object. If it is this and not this, not and not this, makes Brahman limited. That's why it can't have a specific form. It cannot, your vritti cannot take a specific form. Because the nature of reality is it's formless. It's as simple as that. So that without taking any particular form. What does that vritti do? The second operation, phalapyapti. What does it do? It removes ignorance fully and completely. From there is no doubt to yourself. Did I understand or not? I have to check. You don't have to check, it's reality. I am Brahman. Do you have to check with somebody? Do I have eyes or not? Let me check. You have to check with somebody and keep reminding yourself, oh, I have nose, I have nose, I have nose. Yeah, I can't forget, I have nose, I have nose. If you think it is subject to memory, if you think it is subject to recollection, if you think it is subject to verification, what does it mean? It's not clear. Doesn't matter. Why? Because not clear doesn't mean zero. Not clear means growing clarity. Do you understand? So you are in the process. And you are in the process. This is why punah shravanam kurva. Again and again listen. Again and again listen. Every time you listen, you are able to refine your thought processes. Your mind is able to reach little deeper. It's able to revise the connections that you have put together. Everything gets its right place. So this is how the process of growing clarity is. The final vritti without bringing any corresponding akara. It will remove ignorance. And from then on, it is Brahmavit. In between, in growing clarity, this is a problem with some of the teachers. When there is growing clarity, they prematurely call, oh, now you know Brahman. And then they say, oh, that final thing is Brahmanishta. No. That's why Nani is praised. Among thousands and millions of those who listen, one becomes Jnani. It's written in Shruti. Those who listen don't become Jnani like that. They need preparation. 12th chapter of the Gita. Little clicks will happen, but don't confuse it. That is relative clarity in the process. That is wonderful. You feel good and enjoy it. But don't mistake it for final thing. That is that akhandakara vritti, Brahmavit. After that, also what? There is mind at a relative level is subject to its own past, whatever. And you see it and you correct it without any, just as you have some hurt in your body and you correct it. It's not like, oh my God, I'm not, now I know I'm Brahman, so I'll not take care of my body. That's silly. Just as how naturally you take care of your body, you also take care of your mind, and without getting confused between where is the locus of this problem. It's not locus. The locus is not I, locus is the mind. And you are managing trusting. So you take care. As simple as that. But those little problems, right, is different from when you are in the process of knowledge. You have to pay attention. And most of the corrections are already done for you to be. Then there are further minor adjustment, more and more subtle. There is no end. This is what Swamiji used to say. You can always be little more compassionate. You can be always little more caring. There is no end. But the major changes take place while you are preparing for knowledge. When you are an individual in relationship with Ishvara, you want to do this transformation that Jack is talking about. Then what we saw is also that how one object can appear as many. Agni externally has many, many different forms. But the same Agni, when it enters our body, it becomes as though a light. Vayu, which is external, is considered inert. But that Vayu, which enters our body, becomes prana, gives life, sentient. So what it means is, one given object appears as many, many different things. Some are sentient, some are insentient. The external air is insentient. When you breathe in, it becomes prana, and that gives you sentiency. And so many different people with different quality of prana, which decides your digestion, elimination, circulation, respiratory function. Prana is different in different bodies, but they make you alive, sentient. The minute you breathe out that air, insentient. One air, so many forms. Similarly, one reality, many, many different forms, which include sentient and insentient beings. Right? We saw Vayu and Agni example. Now, the next example is talked about. Surya yatha sarvalokasya chakshu na lipyate chakshushehi pahyehi doshehi ekas tatha sarvabhutantaratma na lipyate loka dukkhena bahya. Who wants to read?
Just as the sun, the eye of the world, is not affected by the perceptual and external impurities, the one inner self of all beings is not affected by the sorrows of the world, being outside it.
Okay. Yet another example is given. Surya is considered to be the presiding deity of Chakshu. Right? Surya is equivalent to Agni, and Agni is the first element which has formed. And in order to capture form, you need a sense organ. And what is that sense organ? Eyes. That's why the presiding deity of eyes becomes the sun. Alright, both. Now, what is interesting is the presiding deity Agni gives us all sight. But does it give us all equal sight? No. There is Vijatiya Bheda, Sajatiya Bheda, and Swagata Bheda. What does it mean? Between the eye of an eagle and eye of a human being, there is a difference. Eagle, from very far away, up in the sky, is able to detect a prey which is so far away. Human eye is not able to capture it. So what it means is, Devata endows you with sight, but everybody is not endowed with the same sight. There is a principle. What is that principle? Cause and effect. It's not just randomly distributed. So therefore, that is called Vijatiya Bheda. Between two species, there is a completely different range. Animal range is different from human range. Human range is different from bird range. Bird range is different from Deva range. It's all different. But then there is Sajatiya Bheda. What is Sajatiya Bheda? Human beings have one range, but all of us have different eyesight. Nobody has identical eyesight. Somebody gets glasses at the age of 5, somebody gets it at 10, somebody gets it at 42, whatever it is. It's not like because we are all human beings, we have the same range, but within the same range, there is infinite variety. Sajatiya Bheda. And then you have Svagata Bheda. What is Svagata Bheda? Even you and your eyesight, is it constant throughout? Not at all. So, what they say is, it takes a while for a baby's eyes to develop sufficiently that they can see forms as one form as distinct from the other form. This is why what Swamiji used to say is, they used to say terrible two. What is terrible two? Terrible two is when you're first born, you have senses and you have mind, but they don't report distinctions as clearly. By the time you're two, all your senses are pretty well set. Your mind is also pretty well set to recognize differences. And that thing, I am this much and everything else is away from me. And this is why that the terrible two is, at two, the child discovers I am one and everything else is separate. And behavior changes. So, this is what it means is, your eyes themselves undergo change. It's not like if you leave it to Ishvara, he will keep it constant. Ishvara program itself includes what? Deterioration. It's not like, oh, once you let the Ishvara do his job, it will always keep it constant. No. It is designed. Why? Because even this Ishvara's order in your body works in conjunction with your karma. So it will all show up, even though that all intelligence is there. It will not keep everything totally in equilibrium, because karmas have to work. So, what it then means is that there is Svagata Bheda. What is Svagata Bheda? That itself the condition of the eye. Almost by the time that you are 42, almost everybody gets glasses to read. Then over a certain period of time, you can delay all these processes, but you can't totally avoid, because things are in flux. You can delay the processes. You cannot totally keep it constant. Nobody can keep it constant. Vijatiya, Sajatiya, Svagata, Bheda, flux. And within flux, certain effect of time kicks in. Certain effect of other variables kicks in. This is why everybody is subject to old age. Everybody is subject to death. Everybody is subject to decline. Nobody is spared from it. The only thing that you can do is prolong the period of that. So that is in keeping with Ishvara's order. Otherwise, it's your imagination. So, now, what it then means is that Surya as Devata is given different chakshu to everyone. Each one has different capacity. Sajatiya Bheda, Vijatiya Bheda, Svagata Bheda. But is in the process of giving everyone different sight, and that sight that he is given is also changing. Does sun get limited? The fault of the eyes of a given person, does it make sun faulty? manifesting as many. All the limitations of the forms. Do they belong to the reality? Does it take on the limitation of the forms? No. But the reality, where is it? Outside the forms? No. It is in and through the forms, as the content of the forms. Though that content never gets affected by the characteristic of the form. So, this example is a beautiful example which answers the question, if Ishvara is everywhere, and if all that is Ishvara, both the maker and the material cause of the universe, then what? Ishvara is criminal, Ishvara is a murderer, Ishvara is a rapist, because all that is here is Ishvara. Do you understand? This kind of a logic people can raise. What will you answer? You need this verse to answer that question. What does this verse say? Pervading everything. Pervading everything, untouched by the characteristics of the form. Why? Because two things don't have same order of reality. One is the content, the other is the form. The way things are, Mithya cannot touch Satya. Satya is independent of Mithya. So this is why, and what this example is given. Okay? That, look at this. Ekas tatha sarvabhutantara. One, I am. Na lipyate loka dukkhena bahyana. If Ishvara pervades everything, and suppose you say, I am depressed, then who is depressed, you or Ishvara? Then you say, yeah, but I am also Ishvara. Yeah, you are Ishvara. True. I mean, it's true. But what does it mean? That there is a form. Form has characteristics. The content makes the form what it is. It doesn't become the form without becoming the form. Or taking on the characteristics of the form. This is why this simple relationship of pot and clay is extremely important. That is a basic relationship, but if you have understood this relationship, you pretty much understand everything. Pot has form, pot has size, clay is free from it. While it appears as that size, it is free from that size. You can make it into a lump again and create another form. If it had intrinsically become that pot, it's stuck with that pot. So, this is something that people are loka dukkha. What means every form has its own challenge, they have their own dukkha. Atma sarva bhutantaratma. What does it mean? It is not subject to the emotions that people go through. This is why being obsessed with your emotional life and mistaking it for Brahman is also an issue, because you don't have discrimination between the locus of emotional life and nature of Brahman. You mix the two. What is the relationship? You need a certain maturity to understand Brahman, but in reality, Brahman has no relationship with any condition of the mind. The simple example is given. The sun, it's a simple example which is given in the tradition. The sun is shining in its own glory. Suppose you want to see the reflection of the sun in a vessel, and there are three different kinds of vessel. One is with clear water, one is with wavy water, the third is with muddy water. Which one of them will reflect the sun accurately? So that means clear water is required to recognize the presence of the sun in that vessel. But has water got anything to do with the condition of the sun? It has got nothing to do. If the water is contaminated, doesn't mean the sun is contaminated. Atma never is ever pure. It's never subject to any impurity. But in order to recognize, the mind has to become relatively pure. But in reality, purity of that mind has got nothing to do with nature of Atma. This is why, with the pure mind, look, understand this. You can suppose understand Atma. Does it mean that everybody else who has impure mind, Atma is not their truth? It is their truth. It has got nothing, that's why Sarva Bhutantaratma. All these connections which we keep, what does it do? Keeps us somehow connected to the body. We can't see anything beyond. We keep manipulating with this connection. We don't see ourselves as this all-pervasive reality, which is the truth of everything. Mind of a criminal, mind of a saint. This is what Swamiji said yesterday. Mind of a genius who is a genius in tabla, mind of a genius who is a genius in piano. I am is one, invariable. Minds are different, of course. But the mind and the characteristic of mind cannot do anything to nature. This is what Sarva Bhutantara. Sarvatma Bhava is very important. If you keep connecting it to yours, that little entity, and keep trying to manipulate, I have to become this, it's an obsession. Over a period of time, that expansion is needed. And that's why this obsession with one entity has to go. And that's why, and as long as you have very strong Raga and Dvesha, that identity is very firm. So yesterday many people told me that they love the fact that I said how Swamiji operates. He does things, he wants to do things, but he waits for the feedback. What does it mean? He is proactive, he is not lazy, but he waits for the feedback from Ishvara. So his buddhi consciously is not operating from, I want this and this has to happen to me, but consciously aligned to Ishvara's order. Wow. Your pressures are less and less. Beautiful. Right? So this verse is beautiful, that your mind as such has no connection to Atma. In the sense that the condition of the mind cannot do anything to nature of Atma. That is the truth. Okay, next. Eko vashi sarva bhutantaratma ekam rupam bahuda yat karoti tam atmastham ye anupashyanti dhiraha tesham sukham shashvatam na itaresham nityaha anityanam chetanaha acetananam kaha bahuna yo vidadhati kaman tam atmastham ye anupashyanti dhiraha tesham shantihi shashvati na itaresham. Who wants to read?
This non-dual self is the inner controller of all. and the inner self of all beings. Remaining in one form, it projects itself into manifold forms. They are discriminated ones who see that self dwelling in the body. There is lasting happiness for them alone, not for others. This self is permanent among the impermanent. It is the consciousness in the conscious beings. This non-dual self fulfills the desires of all. They are the discriminated ones who see that self dwelling in the body. There is lasting happiness for them alone, not for others.
Okay. What does it mean? Again, connecting this knowledge to your search. What are you searching for? Where does the whole search begin? You want to free yourself from smallness. You want to see yourself as complete, not something, an entity with lack. So that means, as Swamiji said in one of the classes, suppose you discover the fact that Atma is the only reality which is self-revealing, and everything else is revealed in its presence. And what is revealed has no real existence apart from this self-revealing reality. Then he asks the question, so what's the big deal? I understand that. What's the big deal? Even though it's fact, what changes for me? Hey, if you are asking this question, what changes for me? What does it mean? It's not understood. What does it mean? It is connected to your search for fulfillment. Why is it connected to your search for fulfillment? Because there is only one source of happiness. We think there are many sources of happiness, but there is only one source of happiness. And what is that? Limitless nature of Atma. If you analyze any experience of happiness, you got your favorite fruit, mango, and you're happy. What you think is mango caused happiness. But if you analyze the experience a little bit more with the help of Vedanta, if mango gave you happiness, your life becomes very easy. Forever carry mango with you. And you will be happy. Very easy. So there are few things that you have to see. If mango was capable of making you happy, every time you are in the presence of mango, you will be happy because it is giving you happiness. But suppose you are eating a mango and you get the news that there is, some country, maybe it has got nothing to do with you. One country bombed the other country and your mood is down. What happened to that mango enjoyment? Some gone, your mind is preoccupied with something else. Now it's thinking of war and oil prices and economy collapsing, refugees. And in minutes, your mind is so preoccupied with all these implications, mango has lost its capacity to make you happy. Plus, if mango had the quality of bringing happiness, it will make everyone happy. But you have people who say, oh, I don't care much for mangoes. I like lychees. What does it mean? If mango had an object, as an object, had a quality called giving happiness, you will always be happy when you are in the presence of mango. And everybody else will be equally happy. Because that happiness characteristic belongs to mango. Is it true? No? Then you can say, yeah, but still in the presence of mango, I do feel happy. So where does that happiness come from? Then you can say, oh, if it is not coming from mango, then what he was saying is, it must be coming from within. Within. If it was within, you would not be searching for happiness. Do you understand? All these silly talks, oh, it's not outside, it is within. Hey, what within? If it was within and if you were experiencing it, you will not be searching for it. Happiness is the rarest commodity. What does it mean? It's not within. You are searching for it. Means what? It's not within. What it then means is, neither as I am, as you think you are, which is within, but you are one body and one mind. That's why that limitation keeps you in a search mode. That is not the source. So neither I am the source of happiness, as I understand I am, nor the object mango is the source of happiness. But I still experience happiness. Where is it coming from? Vedanta. Vedanta means it's not simplistic. Neither I can attribute to I am as I am, nor I can attribute it to the object. Still something happens in the presence of mango where I feel happy. Where is the source? The source is certain conditions are met. What is the condition? The condition, there is one constant inner voice in us, like a tanpura. You know, when an artist is rendering a song, there is a background music. And what is this background music? Tanpura, which gives artists, to make sure that artist doesn't go off. For all of us, there is this one background voice, almost continuous. I want, I want, I want, I want, I want, I want. What you want keeps changing. 1 minute mango, next minute promotion, third minute child, fourth minute partner. What you want, it keeps changing. I want, I want, I want is the background noise which continues. By the time you satisfy one want, another I want comes. Because that I want is in the background, which manifests again. So, what happens is, this I want for the time being is what you have said, I want mango, for the time being. So, there is a seeker you, then you get the salt, which is mango. For the time being, for that short period, what happens? That I want, the seeker, gets the salt. It gives up its smallness. I want, for the time being. As you give up your own notion of smallness, I want, what happens? Your true nature, which is what? Which is without any limitation, manifests without you collapsing it as something small. Experience of happiness. But it doesn't last too long, even though the source is your nature, not within, it is your nature, which is limitlessness. Atma is not limited. But the minute you say, I want, you have made it small. Anything which makes that I want smallness to go for a while becomes kind of an object that you think gives you happiness. But neither that I want is source of happiness, nor that object is happiness, but magic happens. In the presence of that object, for the time being, the seeker and sought division is resolved. And when that seeker and sought division is resolved, what happens? You no longer at that particular point in time, there is no, that vritti, I want, resolves for a while. Then the self-revealing Atma, it doesn't have any restriction, it doesn't have any limitation. It manifests as a vritti. And what kind of a vritti? Happiness. Happiness. So that means any happiness you have had so far, whether it was induced through an object, induced through a person, induced through learning, induced through music. What was the source? No limitlessness. But the setup is such that you don't recognize that it is your limitlessness which is, right, uninhibited, unrestricted by your own limitation, which is giving you happiness. And the object becomes the as though instrument through which that smallness is given up for a while. This is why we keep getting addicted to objects and people and situations. We don't recognize that they just create for the time being non-demanding beauty. You have given up self-imposed restriction. And as you have given up, because you are with sought, seeker and sought resolution, the seeker ceases for a while. The nature of Atma, which is self-revealing without any limitation, manifests as form of mental vritti of happiness. But how long does that mental vritti of happiness last? Not for too long. Why? Because the mind again gets into the mode of I want. This is satisfied, now something else comes up, then something else comes up. So it is always in a chasing mode. Through objects, through people, through situations, through experiences, it is trying to find its own self, limitlessness. So, don't ask the question, so what? Limitlessness of Atma is cause of any ananda you have experienced so far. Now, what is the difference between this search and this keep creating experiential happiness and knowledge of Atma? What is the relationship? What is the relationship? How is it connected?
Connection is a limitless, which is ever there. In one state, I do not know that I'm limited. Everything is coming from the object which I receive. And on the other hand, I fully understand I'm getting independent of it.
So what it means is, yes, correct. What it means is, what Sitanda is saying is, the conclusion that I want
It's coming from the object.
is gone once and for all. That objects satisfy me. I am small. That conclusion is gone once and for all, never to return. Even if it comes, it is understood very clearly as mithya.
It can be object who only ever become.
Absolutely. What does it mean? This I want is not my reality. Because I want is a small person who wants something. I am limitless. That is, and that limitlessness is the only source of happiness. It manifests in mind as happiness. Happiness, vritti, which is not going to remain, it's going to go. But what produces that vritti is when that smallness, the small person gets what one wants. In that diffusion, for the time being, the conclusion that I am small goes away. And as it goes away, the limitlessness of Atma is manifesting without any restriction, self-imposed restriction. So that means that this is why in Taittiriya Upanishad, Ananda Valli, there is a whole section on Ananda Mimamsa. What is this Ananda Mimamsa? A wise person sitting under a tree and who knows the nature of Atma. And how is his happiness compared to human, the highest possible as a human happiness, as Gandharva, Deva, Indra, Prajapati, Brahmaji. How do you compare his happiness with all these entities which exist in the hierarchy of things in different realms, which are supposed to be very, very exalted realms? How do you compare? All of those entities who are experiencing heightened pleasures as an outcome of their punya and subtle engagement with subtle, they have subtle mind and they have subtler objects to engage with, which produces heightened pleasure. For all of these degrees of ananda, there is only one source. And what is that source? Limitlessness of Atma. There is no second source of happiness. What does it mean? The happiness that Indra is experiencing with his mind, with corresponding objects, the process is the same. The mind coming in touch with those objects, what for the time being gives up limitation. As it gives up limitation, his I am is also this limitless that shines. But Indra doesn't recognize it, so Indra goes for other objects. Everybody is creating happiness through mind coming in contact with objects. But what is the reality when that mind, whoever's mind it is, whether it is Indra's mind or Deva's mind or Gandharva's mind, whoever mind, and then there is a corresponding object, for the time being, it gives up limitation. And the limitlessness manifests. The degrees are higher. Why are the degrees higher and lower? Because the capacity of minds are different. This is the mind which has more punya, more subtle. Objects are subtler, heightened pleasures. The degrees are different. Source is only one. Wise person. He's not jealous, he's not competing. Indra is having more fun. Wonderful. What is the source? Limitless nature. He doesn't know it. I know it. Who is higher? He's still caught in this pattern. Engage with objects and get it. What do I know? I solved the problem once and for all. Who's higher? Indra enjoying great pleasure or a wise person sitting under a tree? Because he's figured it out. This, if you still are struggling, and at the minute you walk out of the class, and your mind is all agitated and unsettled and all of that, can you call yourself a wise person? It's another ball game altogether. Another ball game. A different vision of life. What does it mean? There is only one source of Ananda, which manifests in different minds, in different degrees, through different methods. Sometimes through objects, sometimes through people, sometimes through situations, sometimes through knowledge, vidya, Ananda. All different degrees. All of them. They only create condition for you to give up your sense of limitation for the time being. For everyone. And when you give up for the time being, Ananda emerges. There is only one source. Right? So, this person has solved the problem once and for all of what this search for happiness. Why? Because the happiness, where is this locus of happiness? Neither inside nor outside. It is nature of Atma. This is what he was talking yesterday. The happiness is centered on reality of Atma, the limitlessness of Atma. This is how it is. Now, let's move to the next one. Tat etat iti manyate arnirdeshyam paramam sukham tatham tu tat vijaniyam kimu bhati vibhasita. Na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam na tarakam nema vidyuto bhati kuto yamatni tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati. Okay, who wants to read?
That is this. Thus they know the indefinable ultimate Ananda. How indeed can I know that? Does it shine directly or not? The sun does not illumine that self. The moon and the stars do not illumine. These flashes of lightning also do not illumine. How can this fire illumine? Everything shines after that self alone, which is self-effulgent. By its light all this universe shines.
Wonderful. Okay, how beautiful. So here he says, my God, now it's beginning to interest me a little bit because there is only one source of Ananda, which is limitlessness of Atma. Before I thought Vedanta was dry, theoretical. Now it begins to little bit capture my interest. Right? So, if Atma is the source of, is the only source of happiness. Limitlessness of Atma is the only source of happiness. Whether it is my little happiness or Indra's happiness or the Agni Deva's happiness or whichever Deva's, Brihaspati's happiness, they all derive their happiness. The mind, when it gets what it wants, it creates a condition. When it gives up its smallness for a while. And as it gives up, the self-revealing which has no restriction, which has no limitation, is manifest in your buddhi as experiential ananda. But that experience doesn't last for too long because this I am comes back, small I am, and is still searching now. Yeah. So experiential happiness is just a modification, a condition of the mind which cannot be constant. The source of happiness is nature of Atma, unchanging, limitless. That doesn't deplete, that doesn't come and go. Right? So that's why once you are wise, you have gained that limitlessness, which is the source of happiness of everyone. All happiness is a modification of the mind. When certain conditions are met, then the source is not. I am that source. So in thus Ananda, where is it derived from? The limitless I am. Indra doesn't know I don't. So now this Atma, which is the source of ultimate Ananda means it is Swarupa. The limitlessness is Swarupa. It's not a given experience of Ananda. How do I understand it? Where exactly is it available? Does it shine in its own glory or it shines after something else? This is the question. Bhati va vibhati va. Because now I have to find this Atma. Because now I see it is solution to my incessant search. Ananda Swarupa. न तत्र सूर्यो भाति न चन्द्रतारकं नेमा विद्युतो भाति कुतो यमग्निः तमेव भान्तम् अनुभाति सर्वं तस्य भासा सर्वं idam vibhati. This is a prayer which is part of our arti. Whether you go to Dakshinamurti temple in Anandapati or you go to Rishikesh, they do the same. Na tatra surya bhati, right? So Rishikesh, Sailor'sburg, this is our arti every evening and morning in the temple. So it is interesting. You all went to the temple. You saw that the murtis, vigrahas, are all made of black stone. You saw in Kumbhakonam. And the building structures are created in a way that the light does not penetrate. So all of a sudden, when you are walking in, the light is less. Now you go in, and then there is murti, which is all black. What is your visibility? Not much. What does the priest do? Brings a light. Ishvara, which is there, but it's covered by darkness, not available. Not available to you. What does the priest do? If you have noticed what the priest does, he doesn't just do like that. He goes from top to bottom. What does it mean? He shows you whole of Ishvara, not partial. With this fact. But while he is showing whole of Ishvara with light, what is he chanting? It's ingenious. Na tatra suryo bhati. I'm trying to show you nature of Ishvara. Can it be lit up by the sun? Can sun throw a light on Ishvara? Na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra taraka. Can the moon show you what is the nature of Ishvara? Can Vidyut is lightning, can it show you the nature of Ishvara? If the sun cannot show you the nature of Ishvara, na tatra suryo bhati, na chandra, na taraka. Neither the moon nor the stars. Nema vidyuto bhati. Even the lightning cannot reveal the nature of Ishvara. Then, how can this little light reveal who you are? How can with this little light I can show you what Ishvara is? If the sunlight cannot show you what Ishvara is, the moonlight, the starlight, but the light of lightning does not show you what Ishvara is. Then it says, Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. In fact, it is because of the presence of either consciousness or knowledge and power that the sun shines. It is not that the sun is able to reveal that knowledge and power. It is because of that knowledge and power the sun shines, in whose glory the sun shines. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. Everything shines after it. Tasya bhasa sarvam idam vidhati. It is that one self-revealing presence, in whose presence everything gets revealed. Why? The priest is showing you Ishvara. What is it saying? This Ishvara cannot be objectified. The sunlight cannot reveal this Ishvara. Moonlight cannot reveal this Ishvara. If it is an object, it needs sunlight to reveal it, or moonlight, or Vidyut light. But I can understand you. How can I understand you? You are that light, in who is not a physical light. You are that reality in whose presence the sun becomes what the sun is. The moon becomes what the moon is. The stars become what the stars are. Lightning becomes what lightning is. And this little Agni becomes what it is. So, that means Ishvara cannot be understood as an object which can be shown by either the light or by the moon or the sun. Ishvara can only be understood as the cause from which everything comes. The sun comes, the moon comes, the Vidyut comes, the little fire comes, everything. Tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam. And where is this truth of Ishvara available to me? In my buddhi, as self-revealing, I am. That is the only bhati. Everything else is anubhati. So, there is a method which we have to see, and with this method, I will close the class. So, bhati and anubhati, there is a little prakriya to show that there is only one thing which is bhati, everything else is anubhati. This is why, if you understand, these Indian temples are extraordinary. Our vision goes to noise and we are irritated. This is all little minds. Oh yeah, there are people there, they are talking, and you are upset. Big ideas, big things are all missed out. Then you come and know I'm tired. That's how it is. Everything is laughing. I'm just laughing. Don't worry. Okay. Okay. Now, Bhati and Vibhati. Let's start with an object. Any object. The object I see, but that object to reveal itself to me, it needs light. What kind of light? A physical light to light that object up. So only in presence of that light I can see the object. Right? Suppose you enter a very dark room and there is one object there. Will you be able to see it? No. So what it means is, I see the object. Object shines, but it doesn't shine in its own glory. It shines after. Shines after what? The light. The light in the room. So what it means is, object cannot reveal itself to you. It shines after the light in your room, which reveals it. So now the object becomes Anubhati, shines after. And this light becomes Bhati. Bhati means it shines. And in whose light object is revealed. Now, the physical light that you have in your room itself, is part of this so-called earth. What is the final source of light from which all the other local lights have come? The sun. So that means this local light now is not Bhati. It is Anubhati. What is shining is the sun. And in whose presence all these local lights are shining? They are shining after. In order for the sun to reveal its presence to you, sun is there. But in order for it to reveal its presence to you, you need eyes. This is why eyes are presiding deity of sun. Sun is fire. Fire is the first element which has form. But in order for you to interact with the universe, if there is a form, you need eyes to be able to interact with the form. So, what it means is, the sun cannot reveal its presence to you unless you have your eyes. Chakshu. Now, sun has become Anubhati. It cannot reveal its presence to you. It may still exist, but it cannot reveal its presence to you unless you use your eyes. So now, eyes become Bhati and sun becomes Anubhati. Now, the eyes themselves cannot reveal the sun, the light, or any object to you. unless the mind participates. The eyes, in order for it, what did we see yesterday? Eyes send a signal to the mind, and the mind has to create corresponding vritti now, without which nothing can be understood. So the signals sent by the eyes enable the mind to create what? That particular vritti, which you recognize. So what does it mean? The mind without mind. Eyes cannot operate. Without eyes, you cannot see the sun. Without the sun, there is no possibility of any other physical life. And without that physical life, no object can shine. You understand this relationship? This is the arrangement of Ishvara. Now, mind becomes Anubhati. Eyes become Anubhati. Mind becomes Bhati. Shines in its own glory. In whose presence everything gets revealed. The condition of the senses, the external light of the sun, any other modification which are local lights, and through that, the objects that you see. The mind and its different thoughts. Do they shine by themselves? No. They shine, they are Anubhati. In the presence of Atma, which is consciousness. Sat and Chit. What does it mean? This consciousness is the only Bhati, self-revealing presence, in whose presence everything else shines after. Look at the words. During this arti, you are saying, right, that can I expect the sun to reveal this reality? The sun can only do this. Can any other form of light, which is like a diya, make you see this reality? No. Then how will I understand this reality? It is there and everything else shines after. It is not an object of sun. It is not an object of light. This is the self-revealing presence in whose presence the whole universe shines. Sun, moon, time, space, objects, everything shines. They all shine after. Now, one thing is very important. Where will you put Ishvara here? Can you come to know the presence of all knowledge and all power without the presence of consciousness? What does it mean? Even for you to know that there is Ishvara, you need self-revealing I am consciousness, without which neither the nature of the universe can be known, nor nature of Ishvara can be known, nor all the errors can be corrected. I am is the precondition for knowing everything, even for wielding pramana. What is the precondition? I use pramana to know. What does it mean? I have to exist in order for me to use pramana to know Ishvara. I am is the only final truth. And that your I am is I am of everybody. And it is also I am of Ishvara, which is the only self-revealing reality within which the whole universe is arranged. Here, when we are talking about consciousness, light, are we talking about physical light? Oh, I'm seeing some divine light. Oh, I'm seeing some blue light. Oh, it's very unusual. What are we talking about? When we talk about these blue lights and green lights and pink lights and whatever lights, which light, where do they belong in this? Tell me. Where in this hierarchy, if you are imagining some light, where does it belong?
Mind.
The mind reveals that light, but where does the light belong? Either you are just imagining something with your mind, or maybe there are, the sun. A lot of Indians, they go to northern lights. They go to Scandinavia, or I don't know where they go, Norway, or where they go to see northern lights. And what are those? They say it's like Ishvara's fireworks. The lights, they go in freezing cold. They are all freezing. They go at night, and there is no guarantee that you will see those lights. But they all go. They make such a huge effort to see those beautiful lights, and they say they are just mind-boggling. So even if there are these unusual lights which are not available everywhere, where do they belong? One is the possibility that it just exists in your mind, you are imagining it. But the second is what? There may be some physical phenomena which is incredible, gives rise to some incredibly beautiful lights. Where do they belong? Is this consciousness is of the nature of that light? This consciousness is in whose presence? It's not a light, it is not a physical light. This is in whose presence? Where do the physical lights start from? The sun. All these physical lights come into being. So, this, and now you ask a question. Where do I find this? What is the answer? Where do I find this light of consciousness in whose presence the whole universe is living? Where do you find it? It is always with you, because of which you have been able to see the conditions of your mind, because of which you have been able to see different conditions of your senses, because of which you have been able to see different conditions of your body and the changing nature of the world. Do you need to produce this consciousness? Every experience you have had so far was revealed to you because of the presence of consciousness. If you are searching for consciousness through an experience, keep searching. It is the truth of every experience, without which you could not have had any experience. No experience was possible. It is that invariable. Experiences are changing. It is that invariable presence through which all the experiences which are varied get revealed. Usual, unusual, everything is included. It doesn't participate in anything, but without which no experience can take place. That is the truth. That is the only truth. Everything else is just shining light. So, I'm pretty much on time. I will finish next 2-3 verses in next class. Right? So, don't search for consciousness. I've come to India to look for consciousness. And I'm going to go to Tiruvannamalai because I can there experience something good. No. Right? No, no such gimmicks. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya